Welcome back everyone, I hope you're all awesome. On today's video, I want to share my initial thoughts, impressions, and most importantly sounds with the Hologram Electronics MICROCOSM. This has been a pretty popular pedal with guitar players and other instrumentalists since it came out a couple of years ago. I actually kind of got peer pressured into buying it. I was doing a live stream talking about some fun looping stuff you can do on the Eventide Eclipse, and the topic of the MICROCOSM came up, and I basically asked the question like, is it worth buying or is it just hipster trash? So you all assured me that it is worth checking out, and I want to show you how to use it. I want to make some noises with it, and I'll kind of talk about my thoughts at the end of the video, because it's probably more important to see how it works and what it can do first, and then I can give you my opinion on it. I did buy this brand new as well for anyone interested. I was pretty impressed with how quickly it arrived. Let's go. Let's take a really brief tour of the controls on the MICROCOSM. Given that you can create some really complex sounds on this unit, I kind of expected it to be pretty complicated to use, but a lot of these controls are macros that control various functions at the same time. And I think the workflow, once you wrap your head around it, is pretty streamlined. The manual is very good. I think what is complicated is the interactive nature of some of the controls on here. It's also kind of hard to come up with descriptive terms for some of them, but I will do my best. Basically, the most important control is this mode selector switch up here. So you've got 11 different modes that you can see. They're lumped into 4 broad categories, and each mode has 4 different presets, which are indicated over here. So if I use this encoder and go to the right, I can go through the different presets, kind of scroll through here. You can see the little LED indicator indicates the different mode that I'm in. So that's kind of the general workflow there. You've got your mode and the given preset within a mode. From there, you've got a loop level for the phrase looper. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Mix controls the wet-dry blend between your main signal. I'm using a guitar at the moment, but lots of people like this on synth. I'll try to do some synth stuff later in the video. You've got a synthesizer style filter on here, which is going to pull out high end the lower it goes. You've got a space control to blend in the built-in reverb. You've got shape, repeats, activity, and time as the main controls though. So if you were thinking about one of the delay modes on here, repeats is going to correspond to feedback. Time is going to correspond to the core delay time, and then activity and shape together, there's sort of like density controls in there. We'll talk about them with some audio examples, but I've seen activity described as when you turn it up, you get more of the given effects. So maybe think of activity as a like character control on there, and shape is going to control how some of the kind of granular and sample-based sounds in here get sliced up. So with that out of the way, I'm going to start on the haze mode. Preset number 1, I'll let you hear it with the activity at minimum, repeats all the way down, no reverb, the filter wide open, and I'll just let you hear what the activity control does on here. immediately that's super inspiring in there. It was hard to actually kind of stop playing around with that. So for me, what I've noticed is in each of the distinct modes, there's a preset that stands out. Like for me in the haze mode, it is preset number 3. And then I can just sit there and you're creating this feedback system between what you're playing and what the controls are doing on there. I think while it's handy to try to isolate and wrap your head around what something like the activity control does or the shape control does, what I find myself doing, and I think this is the super strong point of this unit, is I start playing, I start twisting knobs, and then I kind of don't want to stop in there. I find a preset in one of the modes that I like, and I'll just go for it. So the workflow to me is find a sound you like, and then start building it up with the phrase looper. So if I press this button here, we'll turn the looper on, and then these foot switches will be looper controls. I should have mentioned as well, if I've got the looper off, this foot switch here is going to be a tap tempo control. So if I want a shorter or longer time, I can just tap that in, and it's going to be mirrored with this little LED here. Another thing that I can do is if I'm on the subdivisions mode, this will set the core tempo, and I can select different subdivisions. So what's really cool with either of these modes is you've got multiple ways to adjust the time. You can even twist it and get some time stretch stuff happening. But we'll get to that. So if I've got the looper on, basically what I can do is select whether it is pre-effects or post-effects. It's currently post-effects. I can run it forwards or backwards on here. I can just use these 3 controls to start layering. One thing that I didn't mention either is that if I'm on a given mode and I press this encoder, it will put that mode in reverse. So while you've kind of got 11 different modes, 4 presets in each of them, you've also got a forwards and a reverse version of each of those. So let's build up a loop. Let's just have some fun with this. I'm going to crank the space up and the repeats. I'll turn the activity down a bit. I kind of liked this shape here. Not a lot of filtering going on at the moment, but let's just see where we end up. As you can see there, super fun. I think that's pretty straightforward to start layering sounds. So let's delete that loop for now. I just hold down this right foot switch over here and we'll go out of the phrase looper. One thing I want to show you is how you can manipulate time with the loop. So maybe let's just move to a different mode on here. Let's try, say, the micro loop mosaic mode. This is on preset number 4. I'm just going to play and dial this in. When I feel comfortable with it, I'm going to create a little loop. And then if I hold down this shift button and twist the time control while I'm in the looper mode, I can like retime the loop, which is stupid amounts of fun. guitar player and you're like mostly playing rock and metal like I do, it can be really easy to write a lot of stuff that's not a distortion pedal or a delay pedal or a really cool 100-watt amp offers. Not worth the time of day, but this is more than a pedal. This is basically an instrument. It feels more like a synthesizer that you control with, say, your guitar or, again, a bass, another synthesizer. I'm sure you could rat your voice through it and do some fun stuff as well. But it's very different, yet also very familiar to some things that I'm used to. I love the Eventide Rose and the Poly Bebo for some of the time stretch kind of sound-on-sound delays you can do with that. Obviously, the Axe FX has loads of pitch stuff, great reverbs, loopers. You can do stuff with modifiers to kind of do some microcosm-y stuff, but none of them do it as easily as this. You just plug into this and it kind of just pulls you into its own little world, which I think some people are absolutely going to love. Some people simply just don't like these sounds, and that's totally cool as well. I can see why some people might think that there's just kind of navel gazing or noodly nonsense, and let's face it, some of it is navel gazing and noodly nonsense, and some of the sounds in there I think some people are just going to gloss over, but for the stuff in there that feels good, that sounds good, that can be inspiring, this is definitely a keeper. I'm really, really stoked I picked this one up. I'm actually kind of bummed I didn't pick it up earlier, as with a lot of great things. So yeah, I think this is going to be one of those pedals that people continue to talk about for a long time. There's so many creative uses for it. I know people like using it on percussion instruments as well. It kind of feels more like its own thing. I know why people say microcosm style stuff. It reminds me of the way the Strymon Big Sky came out and suddenly everybody was using the cloud mode in it and it became a bit of a cliche. I can see this kind of becoming one of those things where it's like, oh, what's that weird set of sounds someone's using? It must be a microcosm. So yeah, well done to Hologram for kind of nailing that. I had seen some videos with their other gear where, people were maybe not as impressed or it promised a lot and didn't deliver, but feels like they got it right on this. If I did have complaints about it, I wish it had a USB port to update the firmware or to have a software editor. Feels for something this complex, it would make sense to be able to sort of back things up on your computer easily. It's a shame it can't do that. Maybe they'll do a V2 at some point that does those things. But that's really my only complaint, like just being able to interface with the computer. And I'm sure it would be more expensive with those things built in. It would feel a little more like its own kind of workstation than it already does. The other thing as well is I'd love to be able to use the reverb without any of the other stuff in there. But when you turn the mix down, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's an input and output mode that does that. But I really like just the core sound of the reverb. It'd be nice to have that on your board independent of all the fun, glitchy and granular stuff. Nevertheless, let me know your thoughts. If you're a microcosm user and you've got tips and tricks and you think I was using this in a way that was maybe a bit too limited or a bit too narrow-minded, it felt like it kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone for a lot of stuff, but what do I know about any of this? Feel free to share your tips, tricks, and thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.